MechaGodzilla. This mechanical titan, who is regularly considered Godzilla's arch-nemesis right alongside King Ghidorah, has seen a variety of forms throughout the years, sometimes being an alien war machine and other times being a man-made weapon to use against the king of the monsters himself. But one thing that's remained consistent is that this mech is one bona fide badass, with an array of weaponry ranging from laser beams to tow rockets. But which is the most powerful? Is it the classic alien iteration, or will it be Apex's own Titan killer? Today we're going to analyze each version of this mechanical giant to come to a conclusion on which is the king of the mechas. Stay tuned to the end, because I asked you residents on Twitter which you think is the most powerful, which gave some interesting results to say the least. So let's not waste any more time. I'm Alistair, and welcome to DangerVille. To come to a conclusion on which iteration of the mechanized giant is the strongest, we will analyze each of the strengths and weaknesses, and we'll rate them at the end out of 10 to come up with a definitive answer. So let's start off with the original MechaGodzilla from the 1974 film Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla. Built by the Black Hole Planet 3 aliens, MechaGodzilla was constructed to soften up the Earth for invasion by weakening the planet's defenses, and one of the biggest, most formidable defenses was Godzilla, first appearing on Earth in a suit designed to look like organic flesh, to masquerade as Godzilla himself. This layer doesn't seem to provide much protection against oncoming attacks, as it's scraped away easily by melee combat and Godzilla's atomic breath, so its purpose comes mostly from being able to fool the government and other monsters into believing this is the real Godzilla, while it performs its assault on large cities. Although the disguise didn't fool everyone, as Anguirus could sense this wasn't the ally he's come to know throughout the years, so he engaged in battle with the imposter. Although this encounter truly emphasizes how strong MechaGodzilla really is, as he's able to kick Anguirus hundreds of feet away and is capable of breaking Anguirus' jaw, in a rather gruesome scene that traumatized younger me. This made MechaGodzilla seem like a ruthless antagonist, effortlessly dealing with the monster that gave even Godzilla a run for his money. But Godzilla would eventually meet MechaGodzilla, and only then did he reveal his imposing true form, with the shiny metal glistening in the fires of Tokyo. After the veil had been lifted, MechaGodzilla is free to use all weapons at his disposal. But what does he have? Space beams, a rainbow-colored optical laser capable of obliterating objects instantly. Missiles that deploy from the mouth, finger, knee and toes, capable of massive explosive power, which are replaced immediately after each shot, allowing for virtually non-stop firing. Some of these missiles, such as the one that fire from the toes, are equipped with drilling capabilities which bury themselves into the opponents before exploding, allowing for maximum damage. Cross-attack beam, an electromagnetic beam that fires from the center of his chest, strong enough to slice a mountain in half, meaning this beam reaches temperatures of over 2000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to cut through rock instantly. Bombardment. This is the technique of utilizing all weapons at the same time, unleashing a ranged bombardment of a cataclysmic scale. This was able to suppress Godzilla and King Caesar for the entirety of the offense. Flight. MechaGodzilla used flight to his advantage several times in the battle against the King of the Monsters, using the advantage to swoop down and fire missiles and space beams at the defenseless Godzilla. Head rotation. This allows MechaGodzilla to fire from two angles. This means he's able to cover his defenses whilst engaged with two opponents, making laying a finger on the mechanized giant incredibly difficult. Defense Neo Barrier. When MechaGodzilla spins his head rapidly, he's capable of forming an impenetrable shield that blocks both Godzilla's atomic breath and any attempted physical combat, as it burns anything it comes in contact with. Now, MechaGodzilla certainly is equipped with enough weapons to conquer a planet, but what about his weaknesses? Magnets. In the original film, Godzilla was able to damage MechaGodzilla after gaining a magnetic ability, dragging the cosmic monster into Godzilla's arms so he could tear into it using brute force. Not even his space jets could overpower Godzilla's newfound ability. Cyber Neck. Godzilla was able to tear off MechaGodzilla's head, ending its onslaught there and then, leaving the King of the Monsters as the victor. So those are the strengths and weaknesses of MechaGodzilla 1974. Now let's analyze the Titan as seen in his next outing. I've got Jacob, the other half of the channel, to come along to give a helping hand.
MechaGodzilla II was featured in the 1975 film Terror of MechaGodzilla. Following the mech's defeat at the hands of Godzilla, it was rebuilt by the Black Hole Planet 3 aliens, using the remains of the original machine. But this time, it would be equipped with even more dangerous weapons to attempt to take over the world once again. This time, MechaGodzilla would be piloted by a human brain, the cybernetically modified daughter of a scientist that assisted in the reconstruction of the mechanized Titan. This was because the scientist stated that MechaGodzilla required living brain tissue to be perfect, utilizing the full power of a human mind. This time, MechaGodzilla has no disguise. Instead, he arrived at Tokyo with backup, an ancient sea creature called Titanosaurus, which was also controlled by the scientists to do the aliens' bidding. In terms of weaponry, MechaGodzilla features all of what was seen in the previous film. However, the missiles are far more dangerous, and explode with such force that it sends buildings and vehicles high into the air. Although it does have one new ability that increases its defenses twofold. Godzilla learned in the previous film that decapitating MechaGodzilla shuts him down, but when he tried that same move again, he was met with a destructive weapon, a concentrated laser beam. This laser is powerful enough to set Godzilla's flesh ablaze, incapacitating him for the duration of the fight. So you'd expect this iteration of the mech to be better in every way, and while you're right for the most part, it does have one serious weakness. The fact it needed a human brain to function meant it relied on said controller to stay alive. But when the scientist's daughter committed suicide in order to stop MechaGodzilla from taking over the world, it shut down the mechanized giant completely, giving Godzilla the chance to bury it, preventing it from completing its task. Now that's it in terms of Showa MechaGodzilla. Let's move on to the Heisei iteration of the character.
Fast forward all the way to the year 1993. It's been 18 years since MechaGodzilla was last seen on the big screen, so Toho decided to bring the character back with a sleek, modernized form for the film Godzilla vs. MechaGodzilla II. This time built by the United Nations Godzilla Countermeasure Center to protect the world against oncoming Godzilla attacks. Salvaging parts from Mecha King Ghidorah, which was sent through time by future humans to kill Godzilla, G-Force were able to reverse engineer their own anti-Godzilla machine, MechaGodzilla and Garuda, an aerial gunship that attaches to the mechanized giant to form Super MechaGodzilla. With diamond coating, MechaGodzilla is extremely durable against Godzilla's atomic breath, and actually allows the mech to absorb the energy from the beams to power its weapon system. But what weapons does it have at its disposal, and how does the machine fare in action? Well, first off, MechaGodzilla is equipped with a Mega Buster. This rainbow-colored beam functions similarly to the space beams from Showa MechaGodzilla, but this beam fires straight from the mouth instead of the eyes. It can only be fired in short bursts or else the mechanism would overheat, although the shots it does land can be devastating, pushing Godzilla back with the sheer force of the blast. Laser Cannon. Alongside the Mega Buster, MechaGodzilla is equipped with a laser cannon which fires from the eyes in a bright yellow flash, which also proved to be an effective deterrent against the King of the Monsters. Shock Anchor. This harpoon shoots out of the arms where it then digs into the target, releasing a crippling electrical charge, incapacitating the enemy. This weapon proved to be successful against the King of the Monsters, so much so that he began to have a seizure and began foaming from its mouth. Paralyzer Missiles. These missiles are designed to stun Godzilla temporarily, allowing MechaGodzilla to perform his other deadly attacks. He's capable of loading 60 Paralyzer missiles at a single time, allowing for a complete bombardment. In addition to Paralyzer missiles, MechaGodzilla also has Tranquilizer missiles, laced with, as the name suggests, tranquilizers, in order to stun Godzilla, making him drowsy enough to attack with the next weapon on the list, G-Crusher. After MechaGodzilla combined with Garuda, a more advanced iteration of the Shock Anchor became available. The G-Crusher was designed to destroy Godzilla's secondary brain and cripple him from the waist down. The weapon even succeeded at disabling Godzilla, as it was able to crush the brain, leaving him unable to walk. Godzilla was only able to regain his ability to walk after Fire Rodan sacrificed himself to give Godzilla a fighting chance. Hover attack. As you can guess, MechaGodzilla has the ability to hover around the battlefield as it commences its ranged attacks. Since MechaGodzilla II isn't proficient in close combat, staying a distance is vital to its success. This means it can stay away from any brute force attacks that might prove fatal for the mechanized giant. And finally, the high-powered Maser Beam Cannon. By utilizing Garuda's weapons, MechaGodzilla gains the ability to fire this maser from long range, with an output capable of extreme devastation. Used while hovering, it's capable of suppressing Godzilla and nearly killing him. So that's it for the weapons. G-Force made sure MechaGodzilla would be equipped with enough weapons to take down the King of the Monsters, so they didn't hold back. And they were successful in their venture, as the weapon systems almost succeeded at killing him, with the only reason they failed being due to Fire Rodan giving Godzilla newfound abilities to defend himself against the mechanized giant. But what about weaknesses? Where does this iteration of the classic monster falter? Overheating. The Mega Buster became unstable when locked in a beam clash with Godzilla, and became unusable after 10 seconds of continuous firing due to overheating. Durability in close combat. MechaGodzilla lacks any real ability to fight up close, and ended up losing an eye when locked in close combat with Rodan, leading to its laser cannons being disabled. Radiation reversal. When MechaGodzilla was using his shock anchors, Godzilla was able to use his radiation to reverse the flow of the energy back to the mechanized giant, which led to the machine short-circuiting. Heat. While the diamond coating is incredibly resistive against Godzilla's atomic breath, extremely high heat can actually melt the coating, leaving the metal vulnerable to oncoming attacks. This was found to be the case following Godzilla's nuclear pulse, an ability he gained after absorbing Fire Rodan's energy. Though after the coating had been wiped away, the metal was still found to be relatively durable, taking several hits from Godzilla's uranium heat ray, which reaches temperatures in excess of 1.2 million degrees Celsius, before it was finally obliterated. So there's the strengths and weaknesses of Heisei MechaGodzilla. Let us now move on to the next time this iconic titan will be seen on the big screen.
MechaGodzilla showed up a fourth time on the big screen in 2002's Godzilla against MechaGodzilla. Nicknamed Kiryu, the mechanized giant was built around the skeleton of the original Gojira that was killed in 1954, which was intended to take subconscious motor control away from the crew to help fight Godzilla. Kiryu was designed by the anti-Megalosaurus force, so humanity could fight back against the onslaught of monster attacks that had occurred since Gojira's original assault. But did this mech serve as an adequate deterrent against kaiju? Let's find out by breaking down its onboard weapon systems. Electric Wrist Blade. Kiryu sports a significant overhaul in its close combat technology, actually being able to hold its own against the King of the Monsters. One of the weapons at its disposal is a short blade that extends from its right wrist, which is sharp enough to slice through Godzilla's tough skin, and once penetrated, was able to send a crippling surge of electricity into his body. Alongside the wrist blade, Kiryu has a revolving drill. When all its fingers joined together, they'd form a sharp drill, and by rapidly spinning, it became effective at hurting Godzilla, causing extreme pain. Kiryu is able to knock over Godzilla with ease, with help from sheer force of the weight. Flight. This allows Kiryu to fly in any battle, anywhere, making him an effective defense machine. As for ranged attacks, it has the triple hyper maser cannon. This weapon fires from Kiryu's chest and mouth, and is capable of dealing agonizing pain against Godzilla. Dual maser cannons, the Type 99 maser cannon, fire from each of the arms, leading to them being effective suppressive fire weapons. Rocket launcher. Firing from the back and sides, these heat-seeking missiles prove to be effective in its battle against the King of the Monsters. And the most powerful weapon at its disposal, the Absolute Zero Cannon. Stored in its chest, this weapon freezes its target to absolute zero, causing it to disintegrate under the weight of its own mass. Unfortunately, it was damaged in its battle against Godzilla and needed to be replaced with the triple hyper maser cannon. So that's it for the strengths. But how about the weaknesses? First off, Kiryu uses so much power that it runs out of charge in the space of 2 hours during intense combat. This means before a fight is over, Kiryu has to return to base to recharge, giving it a big disadvantage. Also, since Kiryu was built using Gojira's skeleton as a baseline, even going as far as using its DNA in the mecha's construction, when the current Godzilla roared, it triggered Gojira's original memories, and they came flooding back. It broke free of its controls, locking out the external human operators, and began to wreak havoc on Japan, continuing its rampage that it left off in 1954. This is a massive design fault, and led to the death of many citizens. So that's it for Kiryu. Now let's move on to the latest iteration of the mechanized giant.
Apex's MechaGodzilla. Following the events of Godzilla King of the Monsters, humanity recovered the skull of Ghidorah to make a new weapon, and in 2024, Apex finalized construction on a brand new technology, a mechanized giant of their own, a titan called MechaGodzilla. This badass mechanical monster was created by Apex to reclaim the Earth from the Titans so that humanity can remain the alpha species of the planet. Using a psionic link, Apex was able to essentially turn Ghidorah's skull into a supercomputer, capable of controlling such a giant. This skull would have controlled the mech telepathically from a remote location, in a similar fashion to how Ghidorah's three heads communicated. Given a fresh new redesign for the Monsterverse, this iteration of the Titan burst out of a mountain in Hong Kong to take its anger out on the King of the Monsters. But how much of a beast was it? Well, let's take a look at its strengths. Buzzsaws. MechaGodzilla sports claw machine-like hands, and on the interior of the appendages are buzzsaws that slice into anything it comes in contact with. Tail drill. MechaGodzilla is equipped with a sharp spinning drill at the end of its tail. This means it can multitask, using its hands to attack one enemy while the drill attacks another, making it an effective killing machine from all angles. This drill is powerful enough to go straight through a titan's flesh and bone, which would certainly be a gruesome sight to behold. Strength. This iteration of MechaGodzilla is easily the most powerful in close combat, throwing the King of the Monsters around effortlessly like a ragdoll. Its long arms give it almost human-like reflexes, and combined with plasma-fueled punches, it's able to knock out Godzilla in a flash of blue energy. Thrusters. MechaGodzilla's jet propulsion systems, while not strong enough to allow for flight, have enough force to thrust MechaGodzilla left, right, and forward at an incredible pace, and when used strategically, can outpace Godzilla's reflexes, giving him a close combat advantage. That's it for close combat attacks, but what about ranged abilities? Well, Apex has equipped MechaGodzilla with missile launchers, which, when released all at once, are capable at momentarily stunning Godzilla, forcing him to stumble and slow down before engaging in combat. Alongside this, MechaGodzilla has an A-74 Proton Scream, essentially its version of Godzilla's ranged attack. This ability is extremely powerful and can overpower Godzilla's own atomic breath. It's capable of slicing through buildings and severely burning the Titans. Ghidorah's Fury. Now, this is a strange one. It should technically be considered a weakness that Ghidorah was able to essentially possess MechaGodzilla's body, shutting out the controls of the human operators. Ghidorah's Fury definitely helped in its battle against Godzilla. Now that's it for strengths, let's take a look at its weaknesses. Control panel damage. Whilst MechaGodzilla was operating completely autonomously, it was still able to seize up in combat due to liquid being spilled on the control panel, frying some of the remote components. Although this was merely a hitch that lasted less than 3 seconds. Kong's Axe. MechaGodzilla's armor is incredibly strong and is resistant against most attacks, including Kong's Axe. That is until it's charged up by Godzilla's atomic breath, superheating it with radiation, where it's able to slice through the mechanized giant effortlessly. Finally, Apex's MechaGodzilla requires a rare Hollow Earth element to even power it. Without it, the machine lasts only seconds before powering down. Although when Apex equipped MechaGodzilla with the Hollow Earth power source, he was far more powerful than they expected, leading to unforeseen consequences. Now that's it for each of the main MechaGodzillas. Let's take them to the next round, where we can conclude which is officially the most powerful iteration of the character. So let's get down to business. To accurately decide which is the most powerful, we're going to make an average based on their strengths and defenses. Starting off with MechaGodzilla 1974. Thanks to its sheer armory, bombarding Godzilla with missiles and space lasers, we're going to give it a strength of 9. But due to the fact it's poor in close combat, and since it was defeated by tearing off its head, we're going to give it a defense of 6, leaving us with a median of 7.5. While its shield is impenetrable, the fact it's unable to perform any attacks while it's defending itself makes it rarely useful. Next up, we have MechaGodzilla 1975, with the same strengths at 9, but thanks to its added weapon hidden underneath its head, we're giving it a defense of 7, giving it a median of 8. Next up, we have the radically different Heisei MechaGodzilla, designed by the United Nations Godzilla Countermeasure Center. Due to its incredibly effective ranged attacks, we're going to give this mechanized titan a 10. Since without Rodan's help, MechaGodzilla would have essentially killed Godzilla. Although due to its poor close combat abilities and the fact its diamond coating was able to melt, we're going to give Heisei MechaGodzilla a defense of 7, giving us a median of 8.5. Next up we have Kiryu. This iteration of the character became the strongest in close combat up to that point, with an array of new weapons combined with some effective ranged attacks. It made Kiryu a formidable foe, so for that reason we're giving it a strength of 8. As for defense, since it lasts such a small amount of time in battle, we're going to give Kiryu a 6, giving us a median of 7. Finally, we have Apex's MechaGodzilla. This iteration of the character is easily the most powerful of all in terms of close combat attacks, throwing Godzilla around as if he weighs nothing. His ranged attacks aren't the most powerful, but they're strong enough to stun Godzilla and even wound him, giving it a heightened advantage in battle. So we're giving Apex's MechaGodzilla a strength of 9. As for defense, since it can seize up with liquid on the control panel, and since he's able to be destroyed with a primitive weapon, assisted with Godzilla's atomic breath, we're giving this iteration of the character a defense of 8, giving us a median of 8.5. So for those observant residents, you might have noticed that Heisei MechaGodzilla and Apex's MechaGodzilla both drew. Based on everything we've learnt, this is because Heisei MechaGodzilla is incredibly proficient at ranged attacks, almost killing Godzilla. Whilst on the other side of the spectrum, MechaGodzilla from Godzilla vs. Kong is brutal in close combat, also nearly killing Godzilla. Both these titans exceeded in a specific area of combat, and for that reason, they equal each other. So after our analysis, it's safe to conclude Heisei MechaGodzilla ties with legendary MechaGodzilla. We asked the community which they believed is the most powerful, and after over 2,000 residents voted, the vast majority voted for Apex's MechaGodzilla. Of course, that one benefits from being the most recent iteration of the character, so it's the freshest in our minds, but its agility and strength in combat cannot be denied. But what's interesting is how low Heisei MechaGodzilla is. It seems many people have forgot how close to death Godzilla actually was when faced against this mechanical titan. It's understandable why Kiryu is second, since it has so many weapons at its disposal, with the absolute zero cannon being a highlight. But which do you personally think is the strongest? Do you agree with our analysis? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, then leave a like, because it helps us reach even more fans. Don't forget to subscribe and stomp that notification button to become a resident of DangerVille today. I've been Alistair, and we'll see you residents in the next one.